Today, as always, let us gather to listen to the Dhamma and nourish our minds with wisdom. The Buddha offered insight to all sentient beings, for our minds are clouded by ignorance, the state of not knowing. Let us hold on to this point. Our minds are caught in the cycle of becoming, in the cycle of mental formations, and in the cycle of the elements of mind, because of ignorance, the lack of understanding. It's as if we don't realize that we are empty and pure elements, but instead cling to the belief that we are human beings. This is a deep delusion. One day, when we awaken to the Dharma, we will cry. We will realize how foolish we have been. We will cry because we see the truth, that all the struggles and efforts we've made from birth until now have been in vain, that we have been lost in delusion. We will scold ourselves for being so blind. When we awaken in the Dharma, when we reach enlightenment, we will see that we are pure, empty elements, perfectly clear, merging with the entire universe. We are mind, the essence of all, the pure element. The entire universe resides within our mind. We are everything. Consider this: when we were caught in the belief that we are human bodies, when we believed we exist in this world, we have accepted this as truth. Right now, as we speak, we believe we are hearing these words. We believe we are speaking. We believe this is sound. We believe we are conversing and understanding one another. But do you know? None of this truly exists. Not a single thing has any inherent self. Imagine erasing the bodies of all beings and the entire world, the sun, the galaxies, and the infinite universe. Wipe them all away, even the sun, black holes, light, and darkness. Erase them completely, leaving only emptiness, clarity, purity. That is our mind. It has always been there, pure and clear. The One is in the All, and the All is in the One. When we awaken in the Dharma, this realization comes naturally. It is clear, self-evident, recognized by its own nature. The pure essence of this Dharma knows itself as pure. When this is known, doubt disappears and wisdom arises. We clearly understand that we are the pure essence of this Dharma. To put it plainly, we are the empty, pure elements. We do not go, we do not come, we do not arise, we do not cease. There is no darkness, no light. There is no good, no bad, no merit, no demerit. So, what are we clinging to? When suffering arises, we cling to it, crying, lost in suffering. When joy arises, we become lost in it, attached to happiness. These emotions, whether joy or sorrow, are mere ripples of the mind, known as mental formations or the elements of mind. Our mind is the original element, the origin of all things. It creates the elements of mind as tools for the process of shaping and understanding itself. The original essence of the mind does not know its own purity because it is unconditioned. It has no attachment. Purity has no form. It is completely clear, clearer than the brightest crystal, clearer than the purest light. It merges with all things and is beyond time and space. It is the infinite. The universe is entirely this pure element. It is one, merging into everything. When realization arises, there is no more sense of self. There is no male or female. The mind has never been male or female, but today we divide ourselves into the belief that one must be male to attain enlightenment, to ordain, while women are considered to have lesser merit, unable to attain enlightenment, burdened by karma, unable to ordain, their merit insufficient. Only a man is seen as having greater merit and the capacity to attain enlightenment. The mind has never been male or female. This is the first thing to understand clearly. The empty, pure element, which is the origin of all things, does not go, does not come, has never been born, and has never died. We have never been born into this world, and we need not fear leaving it. because all of this has no inherent self. It exists only because we believe in it. We believe in this sound, we believe in the mental images we form, and we believe in these emotions. These three, sound, images, and emotions, are merely elements of mind, mental formations, created by the mind which is clouded by ignorance, by not understanding, which has created these mental formations and elements of mind. These are like a subtle body, used for the purpose of conditioning. It is like when we travel outside the world, we need a spacesuit. When we dive deep underwater, we must wear diving equipment with an oxygen tank. These tools are temporary, used to learn about the world beneath the surface. When we dive underwater, we see the life of the underwater world, how creatures breathe through gills, filter air from the water, how they swim with fins, how they eat by swallowing whole, the structure of their teeth, their excretion, reproduction, and the various underwater plants and animals. Some creatures need to surface to breathe before diving back down. Others live entirely underwater without ever coming to the surface. We understand these stories, and then we rise to the surface, shedding the diving equipment. We have learned what we needed to learn. This is how we learn. When we dive underwater, we observe and remember everything. We use thought and memory. We think and we remember. This can be uncomfortable, but it is fine. We rely on thought and memory to learn about the underwater world, holding on to that knowledge. When we surface, we discard the equipment. We return to being land creatures as we were. We cannot live underwater without the proper equipment. We return to our original state as land creatures. Dharma is merely a process of learning. We use tools to understand and then we finish. Afterward, we will no longer dive underwater because we have understood everything about the underwater world. All doubt is gone, and the mind is like that. Our mind is the empty, pure element. It does not go, does not come, does not arise, does not cease. There is no conditioning at all. It is pure, without male or female, without time, beyond time, timeless. It is the pure Dharma element that remains pure at all times. We already have this pure Dharma element within us. We can call it the element of nirvana, the element of emptiness, or the original mind, because it is always pure. Yet we use this very Dharma element to search for more Dharma elements, using the mind to seek the mind, seeking liberation while being caught in the search for liberation. Those with wisdom are sages, like the Buddha. He spoke just once, and anyone could attain enlightenment right away, because he is a sage. He explained the nature of the mind simply. He pointed out to us not to cling to form and name, which are the five aggregates. Do not cling to the body. Do not cling to thoughts, feelings, or sensations of knowing. He taught only this. Why did he teach not to cling? Because he said these things have no self. The sound that is being spoken has no self. Can we accept this? Can the beings of the world accept it? The body has no self. It is not us. It is not ours. The sound that is spoken has no self. It is not us. It is not ours. The mental images we think of also have no self. They are not us. They are not ours. Emotions, whether pleasant, unpleasant, indifferent, or calm, down to the formless jhanas, also have no self. They are not us. They are not ours. The sensations of perception, the hearing of sounds, can we see that these have no self? They are not us. They are not ours. Can the beings of the world accept this? Such simple Dharma, can we accept it? The Buddha spoke only this. Anyone who submits to the idea of not self, the mind will immediately accept it. It sees the truth that we are pure, empty elements. There is nothing that is truly us or ours. So, what do we cling to? We cry. The elements of the world shake, and the sound of sadhu rings out loudly. I am awake within, seeing my thoughts. After that, it didn't take long. Since I started seeing my thoughts, I made progress each day, and eventually, it all just dissolved completely. Have you ever experienced this? Seeing your thoughts all the time, even while sleeping, still seeing. It starts as words, as sentences, and the mind is constantly speaking, constantly thinking in the mind. It starts as sentences and becomes more and more detailed, until it becomes just words, words, words. It appears and then disappears. It appears and then explodes. It ripples up and then bursts, like a mole popping out of a hole. It pops up and is struck. Every word that ripples in the mind appears and explodes, appears and disappears, and I could say this, but do not seek to see the arising and passing. I am not teaching about arising and passing. I am simply describing a nature, an aspect of reality. It is just a thing, just an element of mind. It has no self. The sound I am speaking now, as you look more closely, you will see it as words, words. It appears and then disappears, appears and disappears. The knower goes to know it, and when it knows, it disappears. It disappears together. It appears and disappears like this, word by word, but it happens very quickly. After a while, it becomes even more subtle. This is not a meditation practice like the one we wish to do so well, nor walking meditation as we wish to do perfectly. I am simply lying down. It is always seeing. Whatever I do, it is always aware, in every moment of consciousness, from waking to sleeping. Especially while sleeping, it is very clear. It sees that the mind is spinning all day and night, until finally it becomes tired. The mind tires on its own. It knows on its own, constantly moving. I do not interfere with it, I just let it be. Thoughts appeared as words, and then they vanished. A word appeared, and then vanished, repeating in this way. It disappeared, then a word would appear and vanish instantly. It was not a sentence, but just a single word that would come and then disappear quickly. It was very fast, just like that. After a short while it became even subtler, and the mind refined itself naturally. It just settled there, focused on itself, and became itself. It was entirely self-generated. The nature of this is simple to understand. If we understand the nature of the mind, by listening to my teachings frequently, it will manifest. We will attain realization very quickly. It's very simple. The Buddha taught only briefly, and enlightenment was easily attained. It is not something difficult. It is simple. Why do we make it difficult? Because we lack wisdom. Even a small amount of wisdom would allow us to understand. The Buddha taught just briefly, but he was a teacher of wisdom. Thus, those who are deeply wise in the nature of the mind are few, not many. I am talking only about the mind, about the nature of non-self, about awakening, about attaining Buddhahood after understanding. I am explaining it clearly for you, but each person's path is different. As for listening to my teachings, that alone is enough. That's it. Even that we might not realize. Now when it comes to me, I am not being taught by anyone. I only have the duty to understand it continuously, to observe it. It just happens by itself. The mind spins by itself, and it continues spinning for a while. It's only a short time. It's not words, not language, but just a ripple of nature. It's like a flash of light, like there is light inside the mind. It arises and fades away like lightning. It's rapid, and yet it's fully seen. So fast, yet fully visible. After a while it explodes. The mind explodes. My chest explodes. It's like someone threw a bomb into my chest and it exploded with a tremendous light that filled everything. Then it was empty. Nothing remained. It was clear, empty, and pure, extremely pure. For some of us, we might say, oh, this is grand, this is magnificent. But for me, it wasn't anything at all. Once it was resolved, it just returned to a state of awareness, asking, what just happened? It was just spinning on its own. It was self-generated. It exploded on its own. After a while, it returned to a sense of awareness and began to ask, what happened? The constant spinning sensation had disappeared. It was gone. There was peace, calm, and stillness. Now I became aware, and I started to reflect. What just happened? As I was about to reflect, I realized that it was thought itself. It used the thought to understand nature. While nature is operating, there is no I in it. There is no story, no thought. It just is, and it ends by itself. But when we become aware of it, we bring thought into it. Once everything was clear, I began to reflect on it. But then a new thought arose in my mind. What just happened? Why is this happening? Oh, why is this so marvelous? There is this voice inside. The thought appeared, and it tried to revisit the image from before to understand what had happened. As it started to attempt this, it suddenly cut off. The mind scolded itself. Do you know you're playing with mental fabrications? What could I do with it? What could I look at? The mind asked and answered itself. What is there to see? It's all gone. It's past. What's there to look at? What more do you want? The Dhamma has already manifested and concluded. What is there left? I thought, well, there's nothing to worry about, and I lay back down. It felt peaceful. Since that day, the mind has continuously declared the Dharma. It knows everything. If it were any of us, we would feel grand and marvelous. We would think, I am great, I am skillful. But for me, it was just, oh, okay, that's it. Since then, I have respected the Dharma deeply. I used to speak the Dharma in a way that the world liked. I spoke well, following the teachings of the traditional scriptures, following what the old teachers and practitioners had taught. In the past, I was very good at it, but after that I couldn't speak like that anymore. All those teachings lost their relevance. The only thing I could speak about was the nature of non-self. I could only talk about the mind. I had no right to talk about anything else. This understanding is what enables us to attain the Dharma quickly. If we understand our own mind well, the Dharma is simple. It's not difficult. Everyone has a mind. Whether we are children, the elderly, disabled, men or women. Anyone can attain the Dharma 100%. Remember, the Dharma is our mind. We do not need to search for it elsewhere. We do not need to look for the Dharma in any place, because the Dharma is our mind. Everything is already complete within our mind. Our mind is the most important, the original element, preceding all things. We just need to set our resolve with sincerity, to wish not to be reborn. Do we know what not being reborn means? Not being reborn means realizing that the voice we hear is not truly us. This voice that is speaking right now, it doesn't truly exist. Can we understand that? The images we form in our minds, they have no true existence. All emotions, whether they are feelings of pleasure, displeasure, neutrality, or even the calm we seek so much, have no true existence. Now, if we wish to attain the Dharma, can we hear the voice that is speaking right now and see that it is merely its own knowing? Can we accept this truth? We just need to understand this nature, and that's it. As the Buddha said, the elements of mind, nama, are not self. There's no need to discuss the elements of form. The elements of mind are non-self. That's it. Can we understand this? It's simple. It's right in front of us. The voice we hear is constantly showing non-self. Can we see that? Here's a simple principle. Can we shape this sound into a solid mass? No. Can we touch it? No. If we can't touch it, can't form it into a solid mass, why are we suffering because of this sound? Why do we get so caught up in it? Why do we let ourselves sink into it? We use this sound to argue, to criticize, to hate, to be angry, to suffer, even to develop stress, anxiety, and migraines. Why are we playing with these thoughts? Where is the solid, real self in this sound? This is the first example. The second example is about mental imagery. The same thing happens when we form an image in our mind and then suffer. Where is the real existence of that image? Try to think of anything, just try to form an image in your mind. Think of your favorite food. Does that image truly exist? Imagine a freshly steamed Alaskan crab, its shell peeled off, just the meat left, the large crab meat dipped in seafood chili paste. We imagine it. We imagine putting a big piece of crab meat into our mouth and dipping it in the sauce. Can we see the image? Do we think this image truly exists? It's like someone who is intoxicated. Think of a person on drugs. They sit and daydream, imagining things in their mind, and they become emotionally attached to those images. They get lost in their thoughts, smiling to themselves, talking to themselves, laughing to themselves. They feel happy, saliva dripping, high on drugs. Why does this person, this mind, get so attached to the illusion? Why can the mind fabricate things so intensely? It's no different from us. I use the example of a person on drugs. The person sits, smiles alone, talks alone, laughs alone. Sometimes they sit in a daze, sometimes they are overjoyed. Why does this mind, this person, become so lost in the elements of mind and thought? Why do we, as observers, say, oh, these people have no mindfulness? But we are the same. We don't need to take drugs. We too slip away into mental fabrications, walking, sitting, lying down, eating, drinking, speaking, thinking. We are constantly sinking into the elements of mind, constantly caught up in mental formations. Some of us walk in meditation, sit in meditation, practicing the Dharma. Some shave their heads and take vows. Some wear white robes as part of renunciation, practicing the Dharma to look good. But what does looking good mean? How is it different from someone who is intoxicated? It's no different. We get lost in mental imagery, thoughts, emotions. We seek peace of mind, but peace is just another state of mind. It is another fluctuation of the mind. It is a mental formation. We practice thinking we can buy merit. Do we even know what merit is? Merit is just a feeling of satisfaction, of happiness. When we spend money and it brings us happiness, we call it merit. We are just playing with our emotions and then we call it merit. We sink into emotions, thoughts and images and tell ourselves that at least we will be reborn in a fortunate realm. But which Buddha ever taught that we should be reborn? We don't need a Buddha to teach us how to be born. We are already being born. The Buddha appeared, attained enlightenment, and taught to free all beings from the cycle of birth and death so that they no longer have to keep coming back. This is the simple Dharma. Understand it. For those who wish to attain enlightenment, our mind is the element of Dharma. It is a clear, empty, pure essence. Do we know the nature of Dharma? It is the element of mind, the original substance from which all other elements, mental and physical, arise. It is the source, the primary element of all things. We can succeed only through the mind. That is why I always teach you to make a resolution. Whenever we set our resolve, our spiritual strength is immediately full. Spiritual strength means having full energy. Many people make a vow with tears in their eyes, and in that moment they attain enlightenment. There is no doubt left. Many want to attain enlightenment, but they want to keep a self. Can anyone who has attained enlightenment have a self? Tell me. On this earth, there are plenty of people who have attained enlightenment, but still act arrogantly. They attain enlightenment and think they are superior, boasting about how great they are. They boast about their achievements in the Dharma. What good is that enlightenment if it leads to pride and arrogance? There is no us in it. There is no us as something special. There is nothing at all. Once enlightenment is attained, there is only the desire to give boundlessly. There is only one goal, to release all sentient beings, to guide the mind and spirit of all beings in the entire universe, freeing them from the cycle of samsara. After enlightenment, there is only the wish to proclaim the ultimate truth, the essence of Dharma, to all beings, so they can understand that we all are mind. Mind as the element of Dharma, pure, empty, and clear. Our mind simply does not know, and so it creates mental constructs, using them as tools to learn about itself. It uses these tools to learn that it is the pure element. Once this understanding is reached, it is complete. When this understanding arises, we no longer need the mental constructs. It is like how we use the body to realize that we are the pure element. Once we realize it, immediately the body loses its value. It will grow old, decay, and disintegrate, but it doesn't matter because it is not us and not ours. The voice we hear, the mental images we form, the emotions that arise, and the sensations we experience, they are all just tools called mental constructs or mind-formed elements. They are the tools of the mind. Once we understand this, seeing that these are just tools, we see that they have no real existence. They are not us. We cannot shape them into a solid form. The sound, the images, the emotions, the sensations, we cannot form them into anything concrete. We cannot touch them. They arise and dissolve, constantly shifting, continuously revealing their impermanence. They demonstrate the characteristic of non-self, anatta, at all times. Once we understand this, we no longer depend on them. What remains is pure, clear emptiness, and from that the Buddha nature bursts forth, breaking free from ignorance. It is as if we are pulled out from the mental formations. The mind has clung to the mental formations, and through these it wraps itself up. But once we break free, it is the pure element emerging from the mental formations. When that happens, it shatters, exploding. We will see the pure essence of Dharma, which is vast and light, like we no longer have a body. Can we imagine how empty it would be if there were no body? If there were no thoughts, no voice speaking, no emotions, no mental images, no sensory perceptions? These are simply vibrations, vibrations of emptiness. They don't know what they are. They are simply the ripples of clear emptiness, like the oscillation of the atmosphere or electromagnetic waves. Imagine that we are a pure mass surrounded by waves of electromagnetic fields. These waves vibrate, polarizing between positive and negative, light and dark. This is the nature of opposites, always in motion. But we are the clear and pure essence, the pure energy, the core element of our being. We are this element, but we have mistakenly clung to the mental constructs, believing that the vibrations on the outside, these opposing energies, are who we are. We created these vibrations as tools to learn about ourselves, but instead we cling to them. Sometimes we sit in a daze, sometimes we become overly excited, caught in our thoughts and emotions. Why does the mind of a person get so lost in the mental constructs sinking so deeply into them. When we see this, we say, oh, these people are mindless, but we too do the same. We don't need to get high on drugs. We walk and we flow into the process of creating. We sit, we lie down, we eat, drink, speak, and think, constantly flowing into the elements, constantly sinking into mental formations all the time. Some people walk mindfully, meditate, and practice Dhamma. Some shave their heads and become monks. Some wear white robes as a form of renunciation. Does it look good? What's the point? What's the difference from someone who's high on drugs? There's no difference at all. They sink into mental images, sink into thoughts, sink into emotions, wanting peaceful feelings. But peace is also just a feeling. It's the rippling of the mind. It is a mental formation. We practice, hoping to buy merit with money. Do you know what merit is? Merit is the feeling of contentment, happiness. It's called joy. When we spend money to buy something, it brings happiness and contentment. We call this merit. We're just playing with our emotions, and we still call it merit. When we sink into these emotions, these mental images, these thoughts, and then say, at least we will be born in a happy realm. You're still going to be born again? Which Buddha taught rebirth? We don't need Buddhism for that. We are born already. The Buddha was born and attained enlightenment to help all beings escape from the cycle of birth and death, so they no longer return to this wheel of suffering. This is simple Dhamma, just this, and you should understand. Can you accept this? For those who wish to attain enlightenment, our minds are the nature of Dhamma, a state of emptiness, purity, and clarity. Do you know the nature of Dhamma? It is the essence of all things, the origin of all elements, both form and formlessness. It is supreme, it governs all things, and it is through the mind that one attains. This is why I always teach you, we make vows because whenever we make a vow, our spiritual power is immediately fulfilled. Spiritual power means our inner strength is complete. Many people make vows and cry at the same time. They think that just by making a vow, they will attain enlightenment and all doubts will be gone. Many want to reach enlightenment, but they still want to have a self. Enlightenment, where is there a self in true enlightenment? Tell me. Even those who claim to be enlightened in this world still act like thugs. Enlightened thugs, enlightened ones who think they are great on their own, enlightened ones who boast about their superiority, saying how great they are. But true enlightenment has no self. There is no self being great. There is nothing. True enlightenment is about giving without boundaries, with the sole aim of helping all sentient beings, the mind and the spirit, in the entire universe to be freed from the cycle of birth and death. After enlightenment, there is only the desire to proclaim the truth of Dhamma for all beings to know, that we are all minds, which are the nature of Dhamma, the pure and empty element. Our minds simply do not know. They create the elements as tools to work through, to learn about themselves, and use these tools to realize that we are pure elements. Once we understand this, it is finished. When we realize this, we no longer rely on the elements, just as we use the body to come to the realization that we are pure elements. Once we understand this, the body loses all meaning. It will age, it will decay, it will break apart. But we don't care, because it is not us, it is not ours. The voice we speak, the mental images, the emotions that arise, the perceptions we are currently experiencing, they are all just tools. They are called the elements, the mental formations. They are simply tools of the mind. When we understand this, we see that they are just tools. They do not truly exist as something separate. They are not us. We cannot grasp them as solid objects. The sound, the mental image, the emotions, the awareness. They cannot be formed into something solid. They are intangible. They appear and disappear constantly, ever changing, manifesting the nature of non-self. Once we understand this, we no longer depend on them. What remains is only pure emptiness, clear, pristine. And this will give rise to the Buddha nature, bursting forth, breaking through all ignorance. It is as if we have been torn away from the mental formations. The mind has clung to mental formations, and the mind creates them to wrap itself in these formations. But once we are free, we are pure elements, detached from the mental formations, and when this happens, it is as if everything shatters. We will experience a kind of explosion, and we will see the pure nature of Dhamma. It is vast, light, and expansive. It is as if there is no body anymore. How spacious is it? Imagine if we had no body, how empty would it feel? If there were no thoughts, no voice, no speech at all, no emotions, no mental images, no perceptions. All of these are simply ripples, ripples in the void. They don't know what they are. They are just the ripple of pure emptiness, like the ripples in the atmosphere, like electromagnetic waves. Imagine that we are a pure mass of energy wrapped in an electromagnetic field. That field ripples, oscillating with positive and negative charges, alternating between light and darkness, positive and negative. This is an inherent, dual nature. It ripples on the outside, but we are the pure, pristine energy at the core. We are this core element, this pure element, but we have been caught up in the illusion of the outer forms. The elements, we become attached to the characteristics, believing that the rippling energy of these external phenomena is us. We create these phenomena to use as tools for understanding ourselves, but then we cling to them, relying on them to learn about the external world. We temporarily rely on this body to learn about the mind. We rely on the elements, like thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, to learn about the mind. Once we understand that our mind is a pure element, then why do we cling to anything else? As the Buddha taught, the five aggregates are not self. Once we realize that the sound we hear is just sound, that it is not our sound, it is just something arising, something fulfilling its role as part of nature, we see that this is not us. The sound is just a natural phenomenon doing its own thing. It does not belong to us. The awareness we have, the knowledge that arises, is not our knowledge. It knows by itself. If we observe closely, when a sound strikes the mind simply knows it. It knows on its own, without any need for effort or mindfulness. Do we need to practice mindfulness first before hearing my voice? It's not to the extent of being addicted to drugs. If someone practices mindfulness just to hear my voice, then they are already deep into addiction. It's like someone addicted to drugs. They talk to themselves, smile by themselves, laugh by themselves, dream by themselves, sometimes even burn their own house down. Why does the mind of that person fall so deeply into mental images, into thoughts, into emotions? Why do we fall into the sound? Why do we fall into the mental images? Why do we cling to these emotions? Why do we cling to these perceptions? If we do, it's no different from addiction. The Dhamma speaks like this to help us see that it is non-self. Please, try to understand the Buddha's teachings. Wanting to attain enlightenment, but not willing to let go of the self. Wanting a self, but hoping to attain enlightenment. True enlightenment means realizing the pure element. To reach this pure element, one must not cling to form, nor to the elements of thought. Only then will the mind become its own pure element. In reality, it already is a pure element. It only temporarily relies on these mental elements and clings to the physical forms out of ignorance. Ignorance is the mind's foolishness. The Buddha teaches us wisdom so that we can break free from this ignorance. A wise person listening to the Buddha may attain enlightenment in a moment, just 1 minute of hearing the Dhamma. Some, upon hearing the teaching for only a minute, attain enlightenment right away. Others, after listening for half an hour, may need further clarification because they don't understand immediately. But once they understand, they realize there is no self, and they break down in tears. Once we awaken to the Buddha nature, we understand everything. Even in the presence of the Buddha, we don't need to ask. We will know. There is nothing greater than this. Life becomes utterly fulfilling, far more than winning the lottery 1,000,000 times over. When we imagine winning the lottery, say 3 million baht, we think it will bring us happiness. But the moment we receive it, we start to suffer. We begin to experience discontent even before we've fully grasped it. Thoughts arise. What should I do with this money? Oh, I need to cash it in. Will they rob me? Should I deposit it in the bank? If it's in the bank, is that good? Or should I take cash? Once I have it, what should I buy first? Will the people around me find out? Will they come asking for money? Will my relatives come to me? These are the worries that arise, known as the castle of desire. Afterward, life becomes chaotic. Sentient beings love this kind of drama. Do we enjoy it? Do we like these things? Sentient beings love these things, don't they? Do you know what they want? Sentient beings want bodies. Do they want to be a worm? Do they want to be a caterpillar? Do they want to be a gecko, a snake, a centipede, a millipede? Do they want to be a millipede or a cockroach? Do they want to be an iguana? Sentient beings love to have bodies, don't they? Do we want to have a human body? This is the nature of sentient beings. The mind is a pure, empty, clear element, but because of ignorance, it creates a subtle body, like putting on a transparent suit or a bubble. We are like a clear element, but when we put on this bubble, it starts to perceive. When an emotion arises, it perceives it. The bubble perceives and ripples, creating sound, images, and emotions. Once we begin to perceive these sensations as ours, we get excited. We are delighted that we now have the element of name and form, nama-rupa. We feel that we have obtained something, that we own something. Now we begin to seek the next form, another body. This is the nature of sentient beings. This is the mind clouded by ignorance. The Buddha came to teach us wisdom. I explain like this. If you listen, within 7 months you will understand. Actually, if you listen to my recordings, it may take no more than a month, or even just 7 days. In no time, enlightenment will arise, and you'll burst into tears. When we practice the Dhamma and experience the path, it's simple and light. It will feel light and spacious, as if we don't need to do anything. Why does it feel so light? It's because when we understand in our hearts that there is no self, that realization is so light. Do you understand how light it feels to truly know that there is no self? Try imagining that the body is gone. Does it feel light? Very light. Now imagine the emotions are gone. Does that feel light? No emotions, no mental images, no sounds. Does it feel light? Even lighter. Now remove the awareness itself, the one who is aware. The awareness is not us either. Remove that, and what remains is only pure emptiness, clear and empty. When we reach this, we will know that this is the ultimate suffering. When we realize it, we'll know there is nothing greater than this. It is the ultimate of all things, because there is no us in it, but it is us. We are the clarity, without shape, without form, merging with the entire universe. There is no coming or going. It is everything. Do you understand that this clear emptiness present throughout the universe has no coming or going? It is everything. Our mind merges with all of it. This is why the Buddha knew all things. The Arahants who have attained power also know everything. How could they not? Because it is all one and the same. Once we realize it, we will know that it is lighter than light, clearer than clear. We will call it Nibbanam Paramam Sukhama, but even that phrase is too simplistic. It's much more profound than this. The language that calls it Nibbanaas, the highest happiness, is rough and crude. The truth is even beyond that, a state that transcends everything, a state that is beyond all. When we perceive it clearly, what happens? We bow to the truth. All of us must make a vow, because when our mind decides not to be reborn, it will gain the power to withdraw from the element of name and form, Namarupa. And it will reach realization quickly on its own. Our mind says, let it decide. It is like our mind is currently attached to the element of name, which is external phenomena. The mind keeps stirring, clinging to external forms, attaching more and more value to them. It sends out energy, moving outward. But once our mind vows not to be reborn, not to be foolish and cling to any sensations, it will start to withdraw. The energy will return within itself. It will no longer cling to form nor to name. It will retract its energy and return to its true nature. It's like the sun radiating warmth and light outward, grasping everything it touches. The light clings to everything it meets. But when the sun makes a vow not to be born, it will stop grasping anything. It will retract its energy, pull it back, until it realizes that it is the sun, a pure element with all its energy contained within itself. Now, it no longer sends energy outward to cling to anything. It will be complete in itself, and it will realize that all things are anatta, not self, not ours. It will understand that all phenomena, inside and outside, are impermanent and have no true self. It will understand the teaching, all phenomena are not self, Sabbe Dhamma anatta. All things inside and out are just the nature of the elements, without an inherent self, not us, not ours. When this realization is reached, there is no need to do anything. We will know that this is the ultimate suffering, and there is nothing more beyond it. Even the Buddha, standing right in front of us, would not need to ask. Some people may ask, what does it mean to attain enlightenment? But what does that even mean? Some may say that to attain enlightenment, one must follow certain practices, but those practices arise from ignorance. When there is no ignorance, there is no attachment to practice, because everything is already here. It is always present in its pure form. The entire Dhamma is here, constantly manifesting as not self. It is pure and always pure. The 84,000 teachings of the Buddha are already pure. So what else is there to practice? What else is there to attain? Who needs to practice? Who is practicing? We might say, we are the ones practicing. But where are we in that? Which Buddha taught that there is a self? The Buddha taught that there is no self, nothing that belongs to us. Do you not understand this? Are you arguing with the Buddha? All things are not self. The Dhamma always demonstrates not self. Why do we not see it? Isn't it strange? But those who carry the knowledge, the scriptures, and the methods of practice, they are still attached. Practicing is like a person addicted to drugs. They are playing with mental images, playing with emotions, playing with thoughts. They want to escape from thoughts, don't they? They want to escape from mental formations, from mental images, from emotions, from sensations, from all suffering. So they turn to drugs. Once they take the drug, they escape from suffering and sit there smiling to themselves, laughing alone. We are like that. All beings are like that. Do you know what we do when we want to escape from suffering? We seek happiness. We spend money to buy merit to escape from suffering. We build this, create that, buy this, buy that, and we say we've gained this and that. We say we'll escape suffering. We seek happiness to escape from suffering. Some people ask, does attaining enlightenment have to be like this? And why must it be that way? Must we overcome the 10 fetters? Where do these 10 fetters come from? What is the most powerful of the 10 fetters? Ignorance? But once the Dhamma has no ignorance, where can the fetters come from? You don't understand. You need to understand the Dhamma in all its 84,000 ways. The Dhamma is all here already. It is always anatta, not self. It is pure, always pure. The 84,000 teachings of the Buddha are pure. They show everything as pure. What more is there to practice? What more is there to attain? Which practice? Who practices? Who practices? There is no need for practice. The teachers say we must practice until the end. Who is practicing? We would answer, we are the ones practicing. But where are we? Which Buddha taught that there is a self? The Buddha taught that nothing is us, nothing is ours. Don't you understand? Are you arguing with the Buddha? All things are not self. The Dhamma always demonstrates not self. Why don't we see it? Isn't it strange? But those who carry knowledge, carry the scriptures, carry methods of practice, they cling to the practice as if they are addicted to drugs. They play with mental images, play with emotions, play with thoughts. They want to escape from thoughts, don't they? They want to escape from mental formations, from mental images, from emotions, from sensations, from all suffering. So they turn to drugs. Once they take the drug, they escape from all suffering and sit there smiling alone, laughing by themselves. We are like that. All beings are like that. We want to escape from suffering. Do you know how? We seek happiness. We spend money to buy merit to escape from suffering. We create this, buy that, and say we have gained this and that. We say that this will free us from suffering. We seek happiness to escape suffering. Every day from morning to night, we are constantly seeking ways to escape suffering. We try to make money, fill our houses, fill our cars, fill the world with wealth, gold, silver, diamonds. How does it feel? Are we free from suffering? Let's imagine that this world exists. Suppose there's a house made entirely of diamonds. Gold, diamonds, everything. I give this house to you. How much money do you want? Should I give you millions, millions, billions? I'll give it all to you. Will you be free from suffering? Do you want food? I'll give you all the food in the world. I'll give it all to you. Will you be free from suffering? What else do you want? Do you want good thoughts? Thoughts in the direction of virtue. Take all virtuous thoughts. What else do you want? Do you want mental images of virtue? Take all virtuous images. What else do you want? Do you want feelings of happiness, even up to the states of jhana and formless meditation? Take it all. What else do you want? Do you want sensory experiences, but only pleasant ones? Take all sensory experiences. Will this end suffering? This is what beings want. Beings only want the positive, not the negative. They believe all suffering is negative, so they want only the positive. They don't see the middle path at all. They don't see that happiness and suffering are the same thing. Beings don't see this. They want only the positive, only happiness and not suffering. They want everything to go according to their desires. They want happy feelings. They want wealth for the sake of happiness. They want status for the sake of happiness. They want praise for the sake of happiness, all to satisfy their emotions because they believe in a self. Beings, listen, make a vow. Our mind is Dhamma. Our escape from suffering is the mind. Wake up. Ignorance is not the way. It's not about wanting to escape suffering and then resorting to drugs. What are we addicted to? We are addicted to wealth, to status, to praise, to happiness, to the sense of self. Beings, go into the cave of selflessness and practice dropping the self. This is what must be said so that we can see something clearly. Now, if we make a vow like this, we will attain wisdom very quickly. Imagine countless Buddhas standing before us. Kneel and bow 3 times to the Buddhas. Look at them with devotion. See billions of Buddhas before you. The image must be clear. Then from the heart, declare this vow before the Buddhas. Don't avert your eyes. May all the Buddhas be witnesses. From this moment onward, I will diligently listen to the Dhamma. I will wake up, observe my mind, observe my thoughts, my mental images, my emotions, my perceptions as they arise, and I will see these as natural phenomena. I will not foolishly cling to them because they are all suffering. They are all part of the cycle of birth and death. I will no longer be born again. This will be my final life. May all the Buddhas be my witnesses. When I have awakened to the Dhamma, I will teach my children, starting from age 4, and all my acquaintances. I will share this pure knowledge with all sentient beings in the universe, across the 3 realms, so they can also realize the Dhamma. I will guide them to liberation, and I will do this on behalf of my Father, to help all beings be free from the cycle of birth and death. The cycle must end in this age. There is no such thing as impossible. If others do not do it, I will do it myself. I will fulfill this duty until the last sentient being is freed from the cycle of birth and death. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Whoever likes chanting, chant this, and you will attain enlightenment. Those who have no strength or merit, come and chant this, recite it, and follow the vow. We will certainly attain enlightenment 100%. The Dhamma I teach is Dharmanupassana Satipatthana, seeing Dhamma within Dhamma. It wakes us up to realize the Dhamma, to see anatta, not self, in the arising phenomena. It shows anatta at all times, but we often don't see it. It's like someone who is intoxicated. They're high on drugs, they're deeply intoxicated, and they think to themselves, speak to themselves, imagine to themselves, and smile with their mouth hanging open, all alone. It's not different from us at all. It's the same. We play with the elements of the mind, playing with mental formations. Why? Because we're drunk on ignorance. Ignorance means being intoxicated, not knowing, or being lost. How should I explain it? Let me put it plainly. It's being drunk. The Buddha came to teach us wisdom, not to teach us charity, morality, mindfulness, or concentration. Those things are already present within wisdom. Whether it is charity, morality, mindfulness, concentration, or wisdom, these are all already within our mind. Once we make a vow, these 5 or 6 qualities, or however many, will arise naturally within us. Merit or spiritual power is just the energy of the mind. All of this will fill the mind completely. Once we set our intention to attain the truth, we will no longer foolishly cling to phenomena. Attaining wisdom means seeing the truth that everything, the thoughts, mental images, emotions, and perceptions, these 4 things, even memory, are all transient and empty. I don't want to say too much. Let's just say that the elements are the mind and its formations. Just say it's the mental formations. Don't foolishly cling to the mental formations. Don't foolishly cling to the elements. Don't foolishly cling to the sound of my voice. Or do you think this voice has a self? Show me. The Dhamma is simple for the wise. For those who don't understand, listen repeatedly. I guarantee you will attain wisdom, surely, within 7 days, 7 months. Actually, it shouldn't take more than a month. If it takes longer, you're just being foolish. Don't be foolish. I've explained it clearly now. Whatever practice you choose, in the end, what you need is wisdom. So you don't need to practice. Just listen, understand, and wisdom will arise. That's it. I've already made this knowledge clear for you. I will repeat this until we open our wisdom in the Dhamma. The mind, which is the element of Dhamma, is empty, pure, and clear. It is the fundamental element, the origin of all elements. But this element does not yet possess wisdom. It doesn't know that it is pure. This is called ignorance. Our minds are made up of ignorance. Ignorance is the not knowing. The mind does not know that it is a pure element because it lacks the capacity to know. For the mind to know that it is pure, it must first create mental formations. It must first create the elements of the mind, the aggregates. It's like when you want to dive into water, you need tools first. Once you have the right tools, you can dive deep. If the tools are not good enough, you can only go shallow, but if they are perfect, you can dive deep. But in the end, it's all for the sake of knowledge. In the same way, for the mind to know that it is pure, it must rely on tools. We must rely on the elements of the mind, the physical body, to communicate. Humans have evolved with the ability to understand the mind through communication, and now we are here to share this knowledge with you, while animals cannot hear it, and people of other religions cannot hear it. Even spirits cannot understand this. Yet here we are, having attained this precious human birth, an extremely rare occurrence. Despite receiving this human form, we neglect our inner consciousness and ignore the fundamental truths. Instead, we merely continue the endless cycle of seeking sustenance and survival, just as any other being does. The mind was never male or female, but it still imagines itself as male or female. The mind has no name, no surname, but it creates one for itself. The mind was never born, never died, but it still clings to the idea of being born and dying. The mind is an element, a zero element with no concept of time at all. Yet we believe that we have age, that we are attached to the elements, attached to form, and attached to name. Understand this. The Buddha teaches that we should not cling to the elements, to form, or to name. When we cling, we sink. We cling to the belief that things are ours, that we love them so much. When they leave us, we cry. But why cry? If we love something, that's good, isn't it? Did they leave us? But they didn't leave us. They are still here in this world. They didn't go anywhere. Their mind is still there, and our mind is here. Where is the separation? Did they stop loving us? Where is the lack of love? Love is just an emotion. We play with emotions, play with names and forms. Oh mind, wake up. You are intoxicated. Do you know that? Wake up. When we wake up those who are intoxicated, what do? We pour cold water on them, right? Pour cold water on them. Do you think it will make them wake up? Yes, it will. When someone is intoxicated, they are lost in their thoughts, speaking and thinking alone, stuck in their emotions, drooling, lost in their delusions. When cold water splashes on them, they suddenly wake up. The intoxication fades, even if only temporarily. If we keep splashing cold water on them, they will keep waking up. They cannot endure it. They will realize it. The intoxication fades. The mind, which was playing with thoughts, images, emotions, and perceptions, suddenly snaps out of it. The delusion fades away. In the same way, when we hear Dhamma, when we hear teachings that strike the heart, teachings that are clear and direct, our mind will wake up. It will snap out of it. When we understand that we are human, is it not true that we are human? Is this voice, these words, or these mental images real? Do they have self-nature? Are emotions real? Does the knowing have self-nature? Why do we get lost in these things? And then, boom, the mind is shattered. We will cry like children, realizing the truth of Dhamma. It will feel light, open, as if we've been tricked. But no one has tricked us. We've been tricking ourselves. The mind is ignorant. Once we understand it, we will realize how incredibly ignorant the mind is. When I had my own awakening, I cursed myself. I said, "Oh, how could the Buddha know this? How could I be so foolish?" I cursed myself. I was the lowest of the low, the worst of the worst, trapped in the deepest hell. I was that being in the deepest hell. I felt so relieved, so aware. So I am that being, huh? How could I have been so wretched? After emerging from the hell, I looked up and saw my father, the Buddha, still working to free beings from suffering. I declared, "Father, I've come up from the hell. Father, are you still working? You can stop now. I will dismantle the suffering for all beings. I will work until no soul remains trapped in the cycle of rebirth. I will take full responsibility on behalf of the Buddha. I will dismantle everything myself. There is no such thing as can't do. I declare it to my father with all my heart. I have taught the members of the team working to free beings that if anyone lacks wisdom and insight, I will teach them so they can see and know everything. Whether you call it special wisdom or direct knowledge, it doesn't matter. I will teach them even beyond that, so that we can take on the task in place of our Father. The Buddhas have worked so hard, and now it's time for us to take on their role. If the storehouse of merit is incomplete, I will fill it completely, right now. Dhamma is already present in the mind. All merit is already within the mind. What do you want? If you want to be a Buddha, be one with the mind. Will you do it? Will you dismantle it? Beings, will you attain Dhamma? Will you let go of it? These elements, these names, we have clung to them for so long. We have been deluded by them for so long. It's the cycle of suffering, the cycle of delusion. Will you awaken the mind of all beings throughout the infinite universe and free them from the cycle of suffering? Will you do it? Dhamma is in the present. Some of you hear this and say, "Oh, okay," but you can't even make a firm vow. You want to attain Dhamma, but what will you attain it with? Are you training in selfhood? Do you want to attain Dhamma while still clinging to a self? Will you continue to suffer? Can you escape suffering while having a self? What is the self? It's when you do not see the mental formations, when you do not see the elements. As long as you do not see them for what they are, you will have a self. But when you see them clearly, you will know that they are not us. Ah, then life is peaceful. The five aggregates continue their work as before. Before, I thought that once I attained full realization and dispelled all doubts in Dhamma, it would be as I imagined. But when I attained the Buddha nature, I no longer doubted anything. I knew everything. My only task was to take on my Father's work. I understood that everything remains the same. The five aggregates are still the same. Everything I was before remains the same. The elements, the names, all function the same. But what changed is the wisdom and knowledge that respect the Dhamma deeply. I see everything as it is. I don't identify with anything. In truth, there is nothing to identify with. All things are pure. and yet they remain on this world as before. I still eat rice with chili paste and vegetables, just like before. It's still enjoyable. But there is no sense of I in this world. In every moment there is nothing left. I am not anything. I've practiced Dhamma, and I have nothing left. I have only the truth, which functions in this world today, rippling through, dismantling the minds of all beings from the cycle of rebirth, just as I declared to my father. That's it. Dhamma is only this. It is time to end here. May we, those who have made a firm vow not to be reborn, those whose goal is enlightenment, those who take the truth of non-self as their refuge, may we realize the Dhamma quickly and completely. May all beings attain this realization immediately, without delay. May the Buddhas of all times be our witnesses. From this moment on, I will diligently listen to the Dhamma, remain awake within, and recognize thoughts, concepts, emotions, and perceptions as they are, as phenomena, not me or mine. I will not cling to any perception. I will not be reborn again. This will be my final birth. Once I realize the truth, I will teach my children, relatives, and others to wake up, to see clearly and not cling to thoughts, concepts, or emotions until my last breath, as an offering to the Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.